Welcome back YouTube, this is Isaac from IMBRC and I'm going to be doing a full review on the Yokomo YZ-2 CA edition. This review is going to be based strictly on the track I run at, which is AstroTurf. Along with this review I'll be throwing in a few little tips that I've found helpful for running on AstroTurf. So first of all, this is a fantastic buggy. It's been really good for me. The parts and the build were excellent. The quality is very, very good. Right out of the box, it drove very well. There's a ton of steering with this car. It turns super, super hard, but I've made a few changes to it that have made it a little bit easier to drive, but not to say it was bad out of the box. It's just aggressive and has a ton of turning, so you may want to consider turning down your EPA or something like that if you're running on a high grip track such as AstroTurf. So I'll get right to the bad things that I've experienced with it, and that's obviously just mostly parts I've broken and a couple other little issues. The durability has been very good. The only thing I have broken on it is a front A-arm. I may have broken two A-arms, but again, the track I run at is pretty brutal. There's just not a lot of forgiveness if you do crash. You're going either into a pole or into a plywood wall. All the jumps are made out of plywood, so if you land the car weird on the top of a jump or something like that, there's just no forgiveness. So I wouldn't say that the durability is bad, but I have broken a couple front A-arms on it, so it may be something that you would want to consider stocking. I did break a rear A-arm and a rear hinge pin right on the back of the car. Down here, just snap this pin and this rear A-arm. But again, it was my fault. I wouldn't blame the car by any means. I just came off. I tried to clear a large jump that really I should have doubled, but I tried to single it, and the car got a little bit weird in the air. The front end came up like this, and then it just landed really hard straight down on the back wheel, and it did break the A-arm and also snapped the pin. Aside from that, I have not broken anything else on it, and I do race on a weekly basis with it. The only other issue that I've had with it, it's not really a braking issue, but it is an issue, and it's a known issue. We'll pop the cover off and I'll show you what I'm talking about. This battery brace here, this is not the stock battery brace, but the stock battery brace, where it goes underneath the waterfall there, if the chassis flexes too much, usually from crashing or something like that, this will pop out from the waterfall. I've never actually had the battery come loose and fall out or anything like that, but you get done with the race and you bring the car back in, and sure enough, that has popped out from the waterfall. So I replaced it with an aftermarket brace, and that has solved the issue. But I will say this: if you are looking, there's a few different braces to choose from. When you're looking at which one you want to get, be aware that the stock brace comes down in a Y, and there's a fair amount of room right here for your ESC or any electronics you have to fit. So the problem I had is that when I purchased this brace, I had to pull all of my electronics out and reconfigure everything to fit and allow for this extra section of the brace to fit. It was a big pain in the neck to do. So just keep that in mind. Maybe look for one that doesn't have so much material right here, that has more of the shape of the stock brace to it. The only other little issue I've had was actually brought to my attention more with the four-wheel drive version of this buggy, the YZ-4, is with the steering and the steering servo. What was happening on my YZ-4 is that the servo was actually shifting slightly on the chassis. The mounts for this servo are plastic, and there's only one screw that holds the servo onto the servo mount on each side, and when the servo is subject to high force, whether it was a crash or skimming along a pipe or something like that, the servo could actually shift left or right just by a couple of millimeters. But what that would do would be throw off your trim, and then all of a sudden the buggy would want to be pulling to the left or pulling to the right. I didn't so much have this issue with this particular, with the two-wheel drive version. It was more with the four-wheel drive version, but it's essentially the same setup. So all you have to do to alleviate this problem is to put a piece of servo tape underneath the servo and then screw it down so the servo is actually taped right to the chassis, and that makes it rock solid and will completely eliminate any type of steering trim problems, with having intermittent trim issues associated with the steering. Other than that, I haven't had any issues with the car. It's been great. Some of the items that I've upgraded, just kind of for the sake of upgrading, have been the Yokomo alloy caps. They do also offer a front sway bar, which I've installed. Aside from that, it's basically stock. I do have an aluminum servo horn on there, but again, these are not parts that you need to get. Let's see, anything else? I do have the heavy-duty Yokomo wing, which I would recommend picking a set of these up. It's like 12 or 13 bucks. You get 2 wings. Just look for heavy-duty Yokomo wing, and they're very, very beefy. Definitely a lot stronger than the wing that comes with the kit. So nice little feature there that I would recommend getting. I do have some Exotech wing buttons, whatever. So the buggy's been very good. The kit comes with a lot of aluminum parts right out of the box. Your hinge pin braces are aluminum. All of the shock components are aluminum. Your entire steering bell crank system is aluminum with ball bearings. Again, in the front, your hinge pin braces are aluminum, and the larger piece underneath the chassis that the hinge pins go through, that is also aluminum. There's a ton of aluminum on this buggy. So aside from that, I would highly recommend this kit to anybody who's looking for a buggy that's designed specifically for high traction. It does a really nice job. You can see it has a very low center of gravity. It does have that 3-gear lay-down transmission, which pushes everything right down to the chassis, give you that nice low center of gravity. As far as what I've chosen to run for an AstroTurf situation is the Schumacher blocks in the rear and the Schumacher slim staggered ribs in the front. These are the J-Concept slim front wheels, and you can use the stock wheels that come with the car, but what you have to do is they're actually the same width as like a four-wheel drive buggy tire, so they're a little bit wider. The wheels are a little bit wider here, so you just cut the extra rib off of the rim and then glue your tire to the inside of that remaining rib. So you can do that. You can also just pick up a set of the J-Concept rims that are designed for the slim tires. Don't need any foams in the front tires, but this setup works very well on AstroTurf. The blocks in the rear the staggered ribs in the front and the slims. Handles very well. These are a blue compound in the back because you will get some tire wear running on AstroTurf. One thing that we have figured out at our track to get a little bit more life out of the tire is to actually, kind of similar to what I was just talking about on the front, is you on the rim you cut off the extra lip here for the bead. So you narrow the tire in and then you just mount it to the inside. And you don't need to glue the tires. Again, this is for a blue compound. I haven't had any experience with yellow compound, but I know some guys who run yellow, and again, I don't see you having any issues running yellow and not gluing the tires. So by narrowing the rim like that, it kind of pushes the tread in and out, and it gives you better traction, and by doing that it makes the tire last longer by pushing the tread out like that. So I would say I'm probably getting anywhere from 6 to 8 race days using this technique, whereas before I would get about 4 race days. So keep that in mind if you're running an AstroTurf. You don't need to glue the tires, which makes it nice when the tires are worn out and you need to replace them. You just pull them off the rim, reuse your foams, throw a new set of tires on there, and it saves you time and money when your tires are worn out. And you will notice when the tires start to wear, they don't necessarily look all that bad, but you'll start to the back end of the buggy will start to get loose, especially in the turns. It'll want to come around, and you'll know that it's time for a new set of tires. You might think, gee, what's wrong with my buggy? But if the buggy's been good and you haven't really changed anything else on it, it's going to be your tires. So a couple of little tips there if you're running on AstroTurf. The setup I'm running, which is working great for me, is the Savox 1258 TG Black Edition servo, the Hobbywing 100 amp V3 censored ESC. I have a Genace shorty pack in there. This is a Tekin 10.5 turn with the stock pinion, and that's another nice thing that comes with the kit. They actually give you a pinion gear. And that's about it for electronics. Would also like to add, if anybody's interested in what I'm running for a setup for AstroTurf, this is basically the stock setup right out of the build. The only changes I've made are to shock oil weight. So in the front, I've thickened everything up, mostly just because this car doesn't really like to flat land too well. If you overshoot a jump and you flat land, it tends to come down and smack and then want to flip over. So I've thickened up the oil a little bit there. It's also made the steering a little bit more mild and slightly easier to drive, along with that front sway bar. So those are the only setup changes I've made, is thickened up the oil and put the front sway bar on. You can get the Yokomo sway bar kit. I am running the thickest bar in the front, and as far as oil goes, I am running 45 weight in the front and 40 weight in the rear. So if you have any questions about the buggy, leave them in the comments below. I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.